This is the NUEX B7 Pro wireless in-ear monitoring system, and it is packed with features. And I mean really packed. It does a lot. However, that worries me, because have you ever bought a product where the feature set is just out of this world and unbelievably big? It does everything, but the core quality of the product is just not what you expect. Well, you know what? In this video, we're going to find out whether this is worth having and whether the core quality of what it does is actually any good. Oh, and I'm going to do a really stupid test at the end of the video just to see if we can push this thing right to its limits. Just for the record, this video is sponsored. However, I am going to say exactly what I think, and I do have some questions to raise, but I'll put that at the end. Let's have a proper look at it and see what's in the box and what you get. Because there's some things in the box that at first I thought, you know what, that's just odd. What's that for? But then you work it out. We'll start with the transmitter. Let's look at the front panel first. You've got a back button, an on-off button, which you're going to need. Then you've got an encoder that turns and presses to select stuff, and you've got a little headphone out. Now, here's the first big feature. If I press this, it's going to turn on. But look, no power supply. It's got its own internal battery, which means you can put this anywhere you like. So if the stage is big, you can put your transmitter near your performer, and you haven't got to run power supply, you've only got to run an XLR to get the audio signal into here. Let's have a look at the back, where you've got two Combi XLR TRS jacks. One of them is mono, you can run both together, and you get stereo. Yep, it's a stereo in-ear system. That's cool. Then you've got an aux in. You've got a power supply, and you do get a power supply with this. I'm not going to bore you by showing you a power supply, it's just a power supply. And then you get a USB port on the back for doing updates and firmware updates. Then on the top of the unit, you've got these two little bars. Those little bars are the transmitters, the wireless aerials, if you like. So there's two of them, which gives you that true diversity, it's called. Then along here, you might notice a little pad and those little brassy coppery bits. That is for this. Sits on top of there, charges directly from this unit, and magnetically stays there. How cool is that? Now, that brings us on to the receiver. This one's got a little clippy spring on the back. It's very lightweight. You've got your connectors there. And then on here, you've got two little indicator lights, your jack for your in-ear monitor headset, on button, your volume controls, and on the other side, you've got a USB port, again, for doing software updates. Whilst I've got it in my hands, we'll quickly show you how to pair it. When you first turn it on, you get this little display, and it's scanning and looking for its little receiver. So, all you do to get them to pair is turn that on. When it goes on, can you see the little lights? Look at this. And there you go. That's it. Done. Paired. You're ready to play. You don't have to do anything else other than just turn that on. That's really good. Before we deep dive into the menus to see what can be done in setup and all the things you can change, and there's quite a lot of features in there, I want to show you some other things that came with it. In the box, you also get that, and that, and that. This lot makes a GoPro mount. If you look at the underside of the unit, there's a little hole there, and into that little hole you can screw that bit, which then fits onto a GoPro mount like this. This slides onto the GoPro mount. Now you can clamp that little setup to whatever you want. Handy if you're clamping it to the side of a bench, side of a mixing desk, rack case, anything like that. The only downside I see is if this tilted sideways, you could actually clamp it onto your mic stand as well. But anyway, yeah, unusual that. NUEX do have a habit of giving you extra stuff. Okay, let's run through some of the other features this thing's got, because there are quite a lot. Let's have a look at the menus. First of all, you've got a display here that shows you your input level and your output levels. And if you notice there's a mute. The mute is a switch on your transmitter. You use the on and off switch. Watch. I can mute that and unmute it just by doing that. Now, be careful not to get caught out by that one, because I did. But if you look at the display, you can see whether it's on mute or not. You just need to be bright enough, like I wasn't. Then along here, you've got your battery displays for both units, for the RX and the TX. The R is for receiver, T is for transmitter. Then if we press this button, we get into the output levels. You can see I've got a pan control, and a master control. The master is actually your level, so you can control it from the receiver, or you can control it from here. And if you notice, I've got the pan control set to one side. Now, I did that because, and to be honest, when I saw a pan control in here, I thought, that's a stupid idea. Why would you want a pan control to send things left and right? But it came in really handy. One of my in-ears started to have a problem at the weekend between sets, and it just dropped. I think one of the drivers had gone. So what I was able to do with this, as you can see here, I just shifted the pan, and okay, the EQs weren't the same, but at least I brought the levels back, so I had the same level in each ear. So if one of your in-ears isn't as loud as the other, if your mix is coming in a little bit wrong, or if your hearing isn't balanced, you can actually use that pan control to put that right into center everything, which at first on the surface when you see a pan control in here, you think you don't need that, especially if you're running in mono, but that worked out really well because I was running in mono and that did help to level those things between my two ears. So that's a plus. Going into the menus here, I need my glasses on to read this, hang on. We have our display settings, which means you can change the boot up picture, your home display, so you can have your faders doing that, or you can have them doing that. I just left it on that. Then the brightness of your little screen here, so entirely up to you. Leave it full. The back button takes you back to the next one. Then we can go to TX-RX. So that one is your latency. Now, I just put this onto the lowest latency possible, and when I do the silly test later on, that's where it'll be as well. We will see if it causes any problems and dropouts, and if that latency makes a difference. Input setup, that's so you can run it in either stereo or mono. If you look at the back, it's left mono, and then you've got left and right stereo. That's pretty standard way of doing it. Headphone level, speaks for itself really, doesn't it? Aux in level, again, speaks for itself. I just pump them up because, you know, I want it nice and loud, and I want the option to have it loud and to be able to turn it down here. Oh, and that's the back button to get you out of the menu, if you hadn't worked it out. Now, the EQ setting, this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because the EQ lets you change and do things like a high pass at 300 or at 500. And then you've got things like a 300 high pass and a 2K bump. A 500 high pass and a 5K bump. Why might you want to do that? Well, you know what? It's quite a standard thing for an engineer to put a high pass filter, and quite an aggressive high pass filter, onto in-ear monitors, and a 2 or a 5K bump for singers, just to give them that air and clarity. If you've got a lot of bottom end around you from a big PA system, then it really balances that as well. You might be playing a different instrument where you don't want that, but you've got the option there. And if you haven't got a mixing desk that's capable of giving you those things, you've got that in the in-ears, which is actually quite a useful feature. Now, I didn't use that because I've got that on my mixing desk, but it's there if you do need it. And I've got to say, I've not seen that on anybody else's in-ears. Phase, you can just invert the phase. That speaks for itself, I think. Language, well, you can change the language to that one or that one. You've got your basic system info, which is useful because it shows you the software setup or the firmware setup you've got. And the firmware can be updated via the USB. And the EQs that you've just seen were in the firmware update I did before I did this review. And then we're back to display. Now, before we go much further, I do want to talk to you about frequencies and digital Wi-Fi frequencies that devices like this use. There are two bandwidths. There's 2.4 and there's 5.8. Now, 2.4 is very, very popular, and everybody's mobile phone, lots of Wi-Fi networks use 2.4, and it's very busy and very congested. 5.8 is less congested and less busy. However, 2.4, things will transmit further. 5.8, they don't go quite as far. So on the surface, it would make sense that you use 2.4. However, it's really busy. So we're getting to a point now where people are starting to find that 2.4 drops out. There's two ways around this. First of all, you can either not use 2.4 and use 5.8, or you can use 2.4 and be clever about it. Well, that's the route NUEX have done. So they get the advantage of having the extra distance that you get from using 2.4, and they get round the problems. And they get round this in two ways. First of all, when it boots up, it scans 2.4 and it finds the channel that's the least busy, and it keeps doing that as you're using it. And when you are using it, if one channel that it's on gets busy, because it's scanning, it will seamlessly hop to another channel, and they call it channel hopping. Clever, eh? Then they do an even cleverer thing where they split the signals into really, really narrow chunks and use those multiple narrow chunks to weave in and out of the bigger bandwidth or the bigger channels that are busy and taken up. And this is how they describe it. You see the motorbikes nipping between the lanes of the big cars and trucks? That's what they're doing, or that's their way of explaining it. Most manufacturers will pick a lane and they'll stay in that lane, and if it gets congested, you get dropouts. That's not what NUEX are doing. You know what? That's really clever, geeky and technical, and I'm not going to pretend to entirely understand how it actually works, but it does. So that's all you need to know as well. It works. You don't get dropouts. Let's not be... Right, I'm sick of this technical stuff. Let's go and do a stupid test. Okay, so I found a little spot. I'm going to put the transmitter on top of the van, and I'm going to have a wander and see how far we get before the sound starts to go. I've got a pair of in-ears to monitor so I can hear what I'm doing. Let's try it. Got a little camera there to see how far away I am, so we'll see how far I get. Let me quickly explain what you're about to see. I took some recorded music, plugged it into the aux in here, and transmitted it from this. I then received it on this like you normally would, and instead of plugging headphones into there, I plugged a field recorder into there, and then from a field recorder, headphones on my in-ears so that I could hear what was going on. So I'm recording what this is receiving. So what you hear, that music that you're about to hear with my commentary, is actually the recorded music from here, and you'll hear the dropouts live as I get further away. It does take a while though. Right, we'll go for a little walk. So there's the van with the transmitter on the top. Well, it's a nice day for a walk. Right, we're glitching a little bit. I'm going to make sure the transmitter's behind me so we've got line of sight. Here we go. Still going? Will I get round the bend? Still going strong. Right, we're at the bend. Quite a long way away now. You see how far we are? is still going. Whether the trees are going to affect with line of sight, things like that, I don't know. Soon find out. I think earlier on it was just that was a fun yes, we're getting a little bit of dropout now. So we're at the bend. I think because we've lost line of sight that it started to go, and now it's back. I've got line of sight again. Okay, so we've got quite a long way there. See how far we've got? That's miles. I'll wave to myself. I think we can call that a success. So how far did I get? Well, according to Google Maps, I got 135.58 meters. If you convert that into feet, that is
444 feet, 9.795 inches.
Which is pretty good, because all the spec from manufacturers is usually generous, says 400 feet. The next thing I'm going to do is pressure test it live at a couple of gigs, so the next thing you see will be me telling you all about that. So, over to me. Thanks, me. Yep, and I'm here reporting after 2 gigs with this thing. What can I say? Yeah, absolutely flawless. Hasn't let me down at all. No dropouts whatsoever in 2 gigs. And the clarity, it just seems to have this space and room around the sound that's just better than, or far better than I'm used to. Anyway, back to me in the studio. Thanks, me. Couple of other bits to mention before we talk about what the possible negatives are. Firmware updates. I'm assuming there will be more to come, which means potentially this unit could get better and better. I've just got the new firmware update, which has got all the EQ curves on it and things like that, and that's a big help. Secondly, the USB port works as an audio out, so you can record onto your phone or into a mixing desk or anything you like. Thirdly, it's also fully compatible with Avium 360 and Behringer P16 or similar kind of systems, so it will work as a full-on wireless monitoring system. You can customize the setup screen, so if you want to, you can have a picture of me when you load the thing up. How good would that be? But my question is this: where do you put it? Because if you put this in a rack, and it will go in a rack, it takes up 2 rack spaces that way. You can just about squeeze that in and you can read the display. But it does take up 2 rack spaces, but you can get 3 of them in. So 3 and 2 rack spaces, not too bad. I like to put mine on my pedal board. So plonk it down on my pedal board, and it's great for connecting that and just plonking that on there, and you can see it and it all works well, and it's really, really accessible. However, if you want to read the screen and it's on your pedal board, you'll have to do what I did and lie on the floor. Now, if you set it up properly, that's not a problem. You only have to lie on the floor once, but you still have to lie on the floor. The other little thing is using it live. If you want to turn the thing up and down, can you see there that you've got very, very small and black buttons on a black receiver to turn up and down? So if you're doing it live in the heat of battle in a sort of darkish stage, it's difficult to find those buttons, and it's very, very difficult unless you've actually remembered to see which one's which. If the buttons were white or stuck up a little bit, or there was just a dial there, maybe it's a fairly firm one so it doesn't get turned accidentally, or a wheel, then that might be a little bit easier. However, the solution is to just set the thing up properly in sound check anyway, and 9 times out of 10 you set it at once and you never have to touch it again. So there you go. What can I say about this thing? Would I recommend it? Would I not? Well, look, I now own 3 different wireless in-ear systems, and I've got a wired system as well. The one I have been using, I'm going to stop using. I'm going to palm that one off on the drummer, and I'm going to start using this one every gig from now on. Okay? I'm not recommending it. I'm telling you, that's going on my pedal board, and I'm going to carry on using that one because that's the best wireless system I've got. Tell me what you think in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, give me a thumbs up, a like, a hype, all of those things, and I'll see you in another video. Oh, and links below.